and try not to, I guess, exist. So, Jim, just go. You never shut up, anyways.
Are you feeling sorry for yourself, Nate? Are
not really.
Are you upset because the podcast got knocked out in the quarterfinals of that meaningless vote thing?
No. Oh, we got Ray now. No,
hey, Ray.
I was not.
There he is.
How's it going?
We were wondering if you were going to show up.
Yeah. Well,
Hey, Ray, looks like you spilt some yogurt down your front of your beard.
I keep it there for later.
Ah, okay.
Little snack later on. I love it.
How's everybody feeling? Everybody good?
They don't call it
except for Nate. Nate's not good.
No, I'm not good. I got a cold.
They don't call it a flavor saver for nothing.
Flavor saver.
Ah. Not COVID though. I checked last night. It's not.
Does that still exist? Is that still a thing? Is it COVID?
A little bit, yeah. Another strain coming around.
Brutal.
Uh-oh. I had it last week.
Most people, they're all vaccinated up and they're not kicking away from it, but they're getting a little sick.
You had COVID last week, did you, Nate? Yeah.
Yeah, for the 5th time.
What's the rules over in the States now if you test positive?
Nothing.
Go get a pub sub or something. I don't know.
Yeah, stay home for a couple of days. You know,
get some NyQuil. Yeah, you're good.
Oh, NyQuil, great.
I don't think that there's anything that's just like the flu, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
You decide to do whatever you want to do with it.
Oh, you're not required if tested positive to isolate or stay away from anybody, or
no anal swabs, nothing.
No, oh, that's a shame.
Those are still optional, though. Rob took those. Rob, NyQuil is not paying us. Get that out of here.
They don't have to pay us.
Yes, they do.
Well, they might now.
No free advertising unless it's queued up.
Well, we're not talking about that. Let's talk about pool.
Let's talk about pool.
We don't have we don't have a huge amount to talk about. Maybe
we have one.
Maybe it's a bit of an audience participation evening.
Well, I think we're gonna have a big discussion on the Masters. I think that there's a pretty spirited and passionate debate that could be had about handicapping and pool.
Oh yes, certainly that form of handicapping.
I watched that match. She fucking tortured Gareth Potts.
Big time. 15 to 5.
And he's a fucking champ when it comes
Gareth Potts. Gareth Potts would be put up as probably one of the greatest Chinese 8-ball players outside of China.
His banking drills
ever played the game.
Are
and
beyond
he got
reality.
absolutely annihilated by that drill. And I give her all the credit. She played great.
Played awesome. But the one ball spot is
that one ball, that last ball off the table, every single rack.
Hold on.
Is a massive advantage.
Let's jump into this first because I think this is the most interesting thing. So we got to set it up for the fans. We got to set it up for the people who didn't actually watch this. So there were men and women in the field in the Masters. First place, $750,000. So they're playing for a ton of money, and there were men and women in the field. And when Matchroom does men and women in the field, everybody just plays the same game. Everybody's just playing the same race. Everything is the same. Men and women are treated exactly equal. All right. Well, we saw that for about a hot, maybe a year and a half stretch, the women were really participating in a lot of men's events. They were getting invites to different, Masters events, Premier League pool, stuff like that. Emily was really putting a huge focus on the women in pool, getting them involved and giving them opportunities that, maybe you could argue they should or should not have gotten given some of the fields. Doesn't matter. It happened. And now what we're seeing is a different option. We are seeing men and women both in the same field playing Chinese 8-ball, which is, I guess, for anybody out there who has never seen it or doesn't intimately know the rules, it is basically 8-ball. It is 8-ball with a few tweaks on rules, but it's 8-ball. But it's done on basically a snooker table. So the balls are the same size, but the pockets are significantly smaller. Does anybody know the actual size of them? It looks to be about like maybe 3.5 or 3 1/4 to me.
And they're cut
and they're rounded.
They're cut like snooker table pockets.
Right.
It's basically a mixture between American pool and English pool. The table is the American pool size, but the pockets are the English pool pockets.
Yeah,
and it's a snooker cloth that's on with a nap, going one direction, but the balls are the American balls.
Yeah. So all right, so the men and the women are both playing in this event, and it's perfect as far as that goes because the finals was man versus woman. The handicap, I guess I haven't said there was a handicap. There was a handicap in this, meaning one ball, any ball that the woman chooses, does not need to be potted, and it needs to be, or they basically just grab the last ball off the table that remains after that, after they pot the second to last object ball, whether it's a stripe or solid, and the ref just comes over, grabs their last ball, picks it up, puts it in the pocket, meaning they only have to pocket 6 of the 7 balls, and they can leave any of the 7 balls that they want. We'll talk about the importance of that, I guess, during our discussion, as whatever evidence we want to use. But that is the handicap that goes on between the men and the women. The men obviously have to make every single one of their balls. The women get to pick one ball not to shoot at, and then just ignore it. Ref comes, grabs it, throws it down. All right, let's start talking about the idea of the handicap first. Who wants to take it first? Jim, go on. I'm not even gonna give him an option.
Who wants to take it first? Jim.
Go ahead. What do you think? What do you think of the idea of a handicap in a tournament like this?
When you're playing for $730,000, probably the biggest first prize that we're going to see in pool this year. Guaranteed, it will be the biggest first prize we're going to see in pool this year.
Well,
one of the biggest first prizes we've seen in many. Sorry,
Saudi Arabia had one last year that was $750,000 too. Yep.
When you're playing for that amount of money, I don't think there should be a handicap. The best player should take it. Now, this is a handicap that's been made. It's a standard handicap in the Chinese game. It's not just for the women. Let's get it straight. It's not that just women that get this. Juniors get it as well. If you're under a certain age and you're playing in one of those tournaments, you also get that handicap.
Oh, I did not know that. All right, so thank you.
As far as I'm aware, that's the case.
If that's the case, I did not know that.
The problem is that it's just a massive handicap, and it's not based on ability. It's based on gender. We know pool's not a physical sport. There is. We've had this discussion about why are women not competing at the high level that men are competing at, and there's people have ideas about there's certain ways just the brain works and how competitive you are naturally as a man or as a woman, or there's just not as many women that have played the game, going into bars or going into pool halls as a kid. More males do that than females, blah blah blah. But okay. You do still have some players that are top level players who are female, and to give them this handicap, I don't think there's a man on the planet that beats Gareth Potts 15-5 at that game. There just isn't. For Gareth Potts to get beat 15-5 by anybody, whether
You're saying without the handicap.
No, yes, without the handicap by anybody.
Yes,
nobody beats Gareth Potts 15-5 without a handicap.
Because there's a lot of guys that beat
which indicates
with that handicap as well.
If the handicap is creating a result that is just a ridiculous result, then now don't get me wrong, she played great. But I've actually played against females at this game with this handicap, and it's ridiculous. It's just crazy. You break a rack of 8-ball, you do have a problem ball on the table that you have to sort out. If you don't have to sort that out, I mean, how many times have you played 8-ball against somebody who just picks the wrong pattern, picks the wrong route, and leaves their most difficult ball to last? You're watching them do it, and you're thinking, brilliant, I'm favourite. Every time you pot a ball, I'm favourite. When you don't have to worry about that one problem ball, and normally that one problem ball is a ball that's tied up with one of your opponent's balls. So not only do you not have to worry about that one problem ball, but you know that if you leave it there, it's a problem for your opponent who does have to worry about that one problem ball, and nobody beats Gareth Potts 15-5 at this game with a legitimate handicap or without handicap. And for it to be just purely based on your gender and not on your ability, it is ridiculous. If I was to play against Kelly Fisher at this game, she would get that handicap against me.
And she would.
Is that fair? Should I be playing any game on a pool table against Kelly Fisher and having to give her a handicap?
All right, Ray, go ahead.
I mean, I watched the match, and it was not almost like not even fun to watch because it was amazing how good she was playing. I'm like, shit, she might beat him even. You know what I mean? If they're playing like she was just playing, clearing the tables great, but you can see the effect of the handicap wearing on Gareth, like mentally, and then also she was just free and relaxed. You know, a lot of times she'd leave a ball up table that was frozen to the center of the cushion somehow, and she doesn't have to develop it, doesn't have to do anything, and she'd clear and play position to get on the 8, and the ref would just take that ball off the table, and you'd realize how big that handicap is. To me, it's almost like the luck of the draw is not having to draw her, to get to. If I'm Gareth, I'd much rather just play one of the top Chinese men and, have a go at that than have to fade, giving up this huge handicap in a game that, to be fair, he's not playing regularly, you know what I mean? But he's obviously an incredible cueist and plays great and knows how to play the game. Him and Melling both had strong tournaments. But I mean, I'd rather just have to play one of the men and not have to deal with that spot. And I'd feel like I'd have a better shot. And I'm like, oh, well, I made the finals, I got to play her, congrats. And she's favorite, I think, in that position. It was strong. It was strong to watch for sure.
I guess I understand the irony and the richness of 4 guys sitting around talking about a women's handicap. So I really wish I would have been able to get one of the ladies on for this, because I think it's just, we need to include that. So I think, I feel like I need to say that at least. I understand the irony of a bunch of fucking guys talking around about a women's handicap. I understand the irony of that. But
these women coming over and taking all our money off us.
With that being said,
Nate, I'm slapping you. Get him out of here.
I want to take this. I do want to take this on a little bit from the women's perspective. Yeah, go on, get that bottle. Because I do think, all right, this is the part that I really have problems with, and this is the part that I've whined about a ton in the past, and I've done a bunch of reflection on. Everybody, for the most part, generally speaking, is okay and understands that a handicap is necessary at levels, right? So Jim, for example, if you and I were to play and we were to gamble regularly, I mean, if we were to play a big set, you would understand that I would need a small spot. If we're going to play a race to 11 on, let's say, my conditions. So the little 7-foot diamond that you and I played a couple racks on at Griff's.
5.
You're an idiot. I'll take that all day long. Bring it on. It's probably about, if it's a race to 11, it's probably 2, maybe 3 games. You would agree, something like that, right?
I would give you 2-3 games, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, remember, Jim, you're only like 30 Fargo points higher than me.
I'm taking him.
Sure, we can. Okay. Anyways, you can understand that there is a handicap that is needed to be had. The only time that we truly have a problem with that handicap is once we lose with it, right? At the end of the day, like I think it'd be very, if the woman didn't make the finals, people would be like, well, yeah, you can give the ladies a handicap all you want. Fine. It shouldn't matter, right? It might make a couple of the ladies, let's bring this back to what we talk about regularly. If the US Open, if all women got 1 game on the wire, are we going to see Kelly Fisher or Yasmin Ocean or a player like that in the finals?
I think the sex issue is secondary. I think
exactly. It has nothing to do with sex. Really.
The fact that you're talking about
sure
players that play so well, like this girl plays jam up Chinese 8-ball.
Sure,
her ability or anybody's ability.
The girl is irrelevant. She's a top player and is getting a handicap.
Exactly.
Sure.
That's basically giving her the nuts. And
that's the difference with what you're talking about, Nate. You're talking about me giving you a handicap because I'm better than you, not because
right.
I think I'm older than you, so you should give me a handicap.
Well, I think
sure.
That's
the same kind of thing.
Well, I understand what you guys are saying, We're talking about it within the context of the tournament that just happened, right? So we can't remove the sex issue from it because that's what it is. I mean, that's ultimately what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think the sex issue is secondary. The fact that this girl is a world-class Chinese 8-ball player getting a handicap from another world-class Chinese 8-ball player in a position where they could probably play even and it would be a close match.
Yeah.
So let me ask.
The fact that she's dominant, in this position is basically skewing this tournament in favor of these players. And the mechanics of the handicap is way more significant than a game on the wire in 9-ball. The game on the wire is not a spot. It's not a spot. This is a huge spot. This is like the handspan playing one pocket.
Sure. It sounds like not a lot, just that one ball off the table.
No, we all know what it is.
I didn't see the match, but I would be willing to bet that the 15 racks that she won, she doesn't get out of 50% of the ones that she got out of if she has to take that last ball. Or she certainly plays it. She certainly plays the game very much differently. She definitely plays the game.
We don't know because we don't know because obviously she's going to be leaving her toughest ball on the table for last, and she's just going to ignore that ball ever exists. We understand that. Would she run out of those if she focused on that? Well, she wouldn't be waiting for it to be her last ball. She'd be playing it into her pattern way earlier. So whether or not she runs out is whether or not she's able to manage that problem ball, if it is a problem ball. So you're right. So I get that, but to say that she wouldn't be able to run out, we don't know because she's going to play her pattern completely different at that point. What I'm saying is, yes, this is a huge, massive handicap. We all understand that. We get that. But are any of you going to venture to say that she makes the finals without having this handicap?
No chance. I don't think. I mean,
so she doesn't win it to begin with, right? So she doesn't win the event to begin with. She loses in the finals. She loses big in the finals, 15-8. Mm-hmm. Does she even get to the, let's say, the final 32 if she doesn't have this handicap?
Maybe.
So I don't know who she played on the way, and
it's hard to say.
What I will tell you is nobody beats Gareth Potts 15-5 at that game.
Sure.
Without a handicap.
No. I understand. And I understand that. What I'm saying is the only reason we have a problem with the handicap is because she is a good player. She's not a world quality player, probably when you put her into the stack of the men, right? Because at the end of the day, if they were to do this for like the World 8-ball championships for the women, like if Predator did that for their event, would we have some women that would make it towards the end? Yeah, probably. Are they going to win it? I don't think so. Maybe it's possible, but what it does is it brings them pretty close to having a chance in every single one of these matches. So does the handicap work?
Sure. But no. See that's it. But you're taking the handicap as a tournament total. Does that give you more of a chance of winning the tournament? What it does do is it like I said, if I enter a tournament, and I have to give that handicap to somebody who is better than me but is female, it takes away the chance I have of beating that person.
But you're using yourself. You're not a world quality player. In fact, if you played,
but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So anybody who's, I mean, if you take Siming Cheng. Siming Cheng, for example, what's her Fargo? 780, something like that?
It's 800.
Siming Cheng, Fargo 800. You give her, so you've got to give these 780 men, pro men, top, world-class professional pro men who are on 780, they have to give her that one ball advantage.
Sure. And what I'm telling you,
she wins the tournament.
Well, hold on. What I'm saying is that brings the women up to having a very, very close competitive, at least being able to compete in all of these different matches.
No, it gives all the women. It gives all the women
more than just competitive.
Well, then why?
It gives all the women down. It gives all the women down to 700 Fargo the chance.
There was one woman.
Give me that spot. Give me that spot.
There was one woman in the final 8.
Not 8-ball.
There was one woman in the final 8.
It's a massive advantage.
Then why wasn't 7 of the 8 finalists women? There was one woman in the final 8.
I guess. From what
you're not giving them the nuts. You're giving them the ability to compete. The fact that she made it to the finals is a testament to how well she plays. But if you take that handicap away from her, we're already discussing whether or not she would even have a chance at the final 32. Are we going to say that she has a chance at the final 4, final 8? We would all unquestionably hands down say no.
If she plays the way she played against Gareth in her matches at all, I mean, that's That's
if we all
good
sure,
as good as you can play a Chinese 8-ball. Now I'm not
So when the ladies play the ladies, do both of them get that same advantage?
I don't understand. I think if it's an open event, it should be an open event and everybody plays even. And then if you want to have a women's division and pay them equal or separately, then that's a different conversation. And then they have the opportunity to enter the men's division, but we don't have the opportunity to enter the women's division. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like,
sure,
it's kind of it doesn't make sense. I don't think, to me. That's the only thing that I would say is like, you have world-class players. They should be competing on the merits of their skill and not on whether the handicap is sufficient enough to get them an advantage to win the tournament. For that, just go play a league or something. I mean, I really don't get it.
I agree with that.
I don't disagree with that.
This is effectively like a world championship, and she's handicapped. And
I think we all agree on that.
It sucks. It sucks that you're in that position. It's kind of like a no-win position because now you have to outrun the nuts. Because she played like God with that handicap. She played like God. She made no error. She broke around like 6 racks. That's stupid. And it's just like Gareth, you just see him imploding. He had no chance. Really.
Well, okay, so to that I would say, well, all right, congratulations. You're supposed to be a world quality player. Why can't you hold your head together long enough to be able to compete in this match? Like you can say that the handicap is hard
equivalent to winning the tournament. It would be like you'd have to celebrate like you won the tournament to play dead perfect and outrun the nuts. Which you can do,
clearly, because somebody beat her.
Is that what you should have to do? No, you should just be able to go and play and have to play somebody even. The handicap is skewed. It's like
but everybody knows what the handicap is before they sign up for the tournament. So if you decide to sign up for that tournament,
are willing to do whatever they have to do to go get a chance to go play for $750,000.
Sure.
So
no, I get that.
That's just a non sequitur. The point is, if you're talking about 2 players playing on the merits of their skill, it shouldn't be a handicap tournament. It's silly. You should have a women's division if you want to create an opportunity for the women to make tons of money, which I am all for. I love that. And then if they want to play in the men's division and the open division, they should play even, and they should write a story about how she drilled everybody's nuts in playing even and won the tournament. That would be unbelievable because that's what sports is about. It's about overcoming the odds. Now, if you have to sit here and say, oh, well, he had to beat this guy handicapped and this guy was sandbagging and he was a Fargo 680 playing in a 550 and under tournament, it's just dumb. You know what I mean? It's like it's like, let's go Club Seals for fun. That's fun. Sure. It's like, why are we getting in this conversation when you have such a prestigious event, such a high quality venue, such a great production, so much great money? Like, it sucks. It's a bad draw for Gareth, honestly. As good as he plays, it's a bad draw for him to have to play her, giving her that spot. And if he played like somebody out of like a Norse mythology novel or something, just swinging Thor's hammer and just crushing everyone. So, I mean, that was a huge match too, right? Wasn't that to get to final, like to get
final
to
four, I think.
To get to the semi-finals, I think, yeah.
Gross.
I mean, Gareth will still have picked up a decent paycheck with all the money that was in there.
Oh my gosh!
But you're out there you're out there trying to get the $730,000 US dollars or whatever it was. And, I guess when there's that amount of money getting played for. I mean, I'm not a fan of handicap tournaments anyway. I know it's much more prolific in the States than it is over here. I don't like the whole handicap thing. It never works correctly. There's always one person who's got too much of a benefit for it or not enough benefit from it. And it's very rarely is it the best player that ever walks away with the top prize when you have these handicap tournaments. And I think for such an event like that, for so much money, the best player should be rewarded. In the end, it was. Yubo is the best player in the world at this game. The guy is insanely good, I mean,
I noticed
like Raymond said, she played amazing, even but the fact that she played amazing, coupled with that handicap, meant that on that day, at that moment, nobody could beat her. There's nobody on. There's nobody else beat. She was beaten on another day when she didn't play as well. Yeah, again, the match she played against Gareth, she played the nuts. Nobody can beat that.
Okay, so I do want to.
That would have beaten that.
I got to address that because at the end of the day, every single and maybe if they played today, Gareth would beat her 15-5, even with that handicap. The point is she played well. The tournament format was what it was. Everybody knew what going in. And there still was only one woman in the final 8. I don't know when the last woman was eliminated. Besides that, I mean the website is in Chinese, and like you can't. It's nearly impossible to follow it along unless you speak Chinese.
Somebody just said something about that in here.
But there was nobody in the
women played each other and then got out to like the final 4 to just wreak havoc amongst the men and just destroy them all.
Well, my point is like the tournament format is what it is. Everybody knew that going in. There's one woman in the final 8. The fact that this made the women at least mildly competitive. I mean, Kelly still didn't make a deep run. She made 17th through 24th or something like that. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if the women have a chance, if we find a format that at least the high end women have a chance to compete, I don't see why it's a problem. I mean, at the end of the day, Gareth Pott, how many times has Gareth Pott been ran over like that in his career? Sure, very few times. But how many times has he done that to somebody else and somebody leaves that event saying, well, if he played like God, what can you do? Well, maybe you can find a way to put it back on him and apply that pressure back. We all agree that he looked like he was kind of mentally tapped out from it. Part of the reason, maybe part of his performance was because he couldn't mentally fade it. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's on him, not on her. The fact that she keeps putting it on it is a testament to how great she plays and her mental fortitude.
Can we first just check? There's people reading the comments here. Are we entirely sure that match against Yubo was the final? Is there not like there's a couple of losers matches? She's in the hot seat now, no?
I keep seeing notifications. I did notice too the mechanics of the break. I thought was interesting that everybody's breaking like across the top of the head ball from the opposite side and like bringing the cue ball, kind of curving it past the head string and not breaking from the middle. And I think that's to kind of separate the balls, but not allow them to come back together and hit them at I guess that's like the optimum break for that particular table. Jim, do you know a little bit about that?
Say again, what kind of break were they using? I didn't really watch much. They went for the second ball, you mean?
No, they're breaking the top, like Brooklyn side of the one ball. So if you're breaking from the left cushion, you're hitting the right side of the top of the one and curving the cue ball over the top of the side pocket. I think to like kind of spread the balls open, but not let them spread and come back together. And so there's less clusters on that's to me was, I guess, the reason. Because I didn't see one person break from the middle. Everybody who I saw that was, even Gareth was breaking from the rail, breaking that. Yeah. Fast. I thought it was interesting.
What it does is breaking from the side and having that break, it kind of almost takes away the chance of the scratch on the break, which is massive, obviously. So you're really trying you're trying to give yourself the best chance not to sell out straight away in the rack. And if you make a ball, you make a ball. That's the only reason I can think. I'm not sure it would have an effect on the spread of the balls much. It's very difficult to control. It's depending on how they're racked, but it can give you benefits with controlling your cue ball and not scratching.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess there's more play. I guess.
Yeah, according to the comments, there's more to go. So Yubo is in the hot seat then, and there's maybe there can't be more than like 3 or 4 that are still fighting to get.
Yeah. I guess the website's nearly impossible to use.
Yes, I find it very difficult to follow, which is why I kind of gave up on it early.
And I guess I went off of their marketing, which they call every single match the finals. So I guess now that I'm looking at that, they're calling everything the grand finals for the. Usually you use that for the actual finals, but I guess that's their event name. I don't know. They're marketing in Chinese, right? So I'm probably wrong on that, I guess. Regardless, I mean, at the end of the day, there's one woman in the final 8. The fact that this brings them up and allows them to compete, I don't see a problem with it. The fact that a woman beats the heck out of Gareth Pott, and that's our justification for saying that this system is broken and it's stupid.
No, that's not. Oh, no. That's not my justification for saying it. My justification for saying it, it's not, like I said in the beginning, this is not only a rule for women, this is a rule for age groups as well, under a certain age. And I'm not sure what the age is, but there's massively talented players under that age that have to give, that will get this advantage as well against somebody who they should never be given an advantage against, just because of their age. You know, this is a problem for me. It's not based on ability. It's based on gender and age. This is the wrong way to handicap, in my opinion. The fact that there is a handicap is not so much an issue for me. It's how you're defining what that handicap is and who gets given the handicap.
How do you think about this change?
Handicaps are always based on ability, not on age, not on sex, not on hair color, not on height.
I don't know.
Not on,
I don't know what the difference is between men and women.
Tweak to the handicap that they're doing now.
Okay, go ahead.
When they say, the one ball in 8-ball, of course, that one particular ball is the whole game. A lot of times it's in a place where it dictates if you're going to win or lose that game. We've established that. What if they did 8-ball the way we're doing it here in the United States a lot of times now, is giving a point value to each ball and then a slightly greater point value to the 8-ball. Now, if you spot them that one ball in the rack, it's not like necessarily dictating win or loss. It's just one less point the women can get in an 8-ball rack. They can still get out easier.
Yeah, but let's hold off on that for a second, because let's talk. I do want to have that discussion in a second, because I think that's a valuable thing to say, Rob. Because I think if we're going to allow some sort of handicapping, then let's talk about the different ways that we could look at it. Because I mean, we could also say, all right, well, you can have a 1-ball handicap, but you have to choose at the front of the rack instead of the back of the rack, right? You could also do that, and I think let's get to that discussion here in a second. But I don't want to close this one out by jumping into that one necessarily yet. So, Jim, I guess the part that I have the problem with is we say, and this always comes generally speaking from men, it's, well, there's no physical aspect to this game. So why are we giving up a handicap, right? Why should there be a handicap? Everybody plays in the same conditions, everybody, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but to say that the men have the same opportunities as the women, whether it's physical, whether it is structurally, whether it is like industrial, it's not true, right? If that was the case, and we would have found some woman at some point in time that was as good as the men in their era at the best, right? We've never seen that. I don't know why. Maybe there's a host of reasons. Maybe there's just one. But to say that the women should and could be just as good as the men, we've never seen that. So how can we just blatantly say that that's the case? Why shouldn't they get some sort of small handicap?
Because
whether it's big or whether it's small.
But I'm talking about individual players. See, this is the thing. You are taking it as women, and that's what they're doing with this handicapping system. They're saying women in general are not as good as men in general. So we give them all a 1-rack handicap or a 1-ball handicap. But what about the elite women who are as good as the men?
Whoa! What woman can you name right now in any aspect of the in any area of the game is as good as the top men?
Siming Cheng.
She's not as good as the top men.
She's an 800 Fargo. She's better than 99.9% of men who play.
But she's not as good as the men.
How many men are an 800 Fargo? 20?
28.
Like that.
But
there's 28 men who are as good as her.
Hold on. Because no, then that's like saying, well, how many men are at 780? Maybe 10 more, 20 or 30 more, 40 more. So why isn't a 780 also at that same level? The point is you are never going to take Siming Chen past a race to 7 against a player like Josh or a player like Jason or Shane or FSR.
You're talking about the kleinest of sorry, I'm speaking Dutch. The smallest of percentage of players. Put her up against Billy.
Yes, but at the top,
give her one ball. Give her 1 ball against Billy Thorpe.
Jim,
probably USA's number 3 player. Give her 1 ball against him.
You're missing my point. My point is she does not compete at the top level against the top players. That's my point. And if she can't compete against an Albin or a Josh or a Fedor or an FSR, then you're talking about the one woman player in history that's been close. And you're saying because she's close and there was only this big of a difference, that's good enough and we can just blanket the entire history of everything else. When what I'm telling you is even if you do want to talk.
No, what you're doing is you're supporting the argument to blanket females as all being not good enough.
I'm saying that there has never been one that has been at the toppest level. And so if you wanted to do some sort of handicap, I could see the justification for it.
I would say anybody who has a Fargo over 800 is an elite pool player, regardless of their gender. You are an elite pool player.
Correct. And I agree with that. I agree with that. 50. What I'm saying is being an elite pool player does not make you compete against FSR and Fedor Gorst and Joshua Filler. That does not mean that you're going to be able to have a chance consistently against those players.
But as an 800 Fargo female player, why should you be given a handicap when a 780 male player is not given a handicap?
So that's a question that we can discuss. What I'm talking about is this is the best of the best of the best. And the fact that 1 out of 8 women is in the final 8 does not mean that the system is broken. We need to throw it out because one of the final 8 players is a woman, and that's BS because she plays good. She plays too good to get a handicap. So let's ignore the rest of it. At the end of the day, if this handicap was that big of a deal and it was making women too good at this game, then there would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players in there. But there's 1.
I think if you gave Kelly Fisher a 1 ball, she
played in this tournament. She didn't make the top 20. She was there. Yes, she was playing.
Like I said, I don't know.
She was there, yes.
But you can't.
Kelly played in it. She got.
I have to say, Nate, to just make it based on gender, under no circumstances can I agree with you because a handicap is based on ability.
Is there a more perfect handicapping way? Probably, maybe. But at the end of the day, like this isn't broken. Like we can't just say that this system is broken because there's one woman there that's beating the hell out of Gareth Potts. I mean, if it was that big of a deal and it actually worked, yeah. So Kelly got 17th. That's what I thought. She got 17th or 24th. You can't in one word say Kelly, if she had this spot, she would kill everybody. And then, oh, well, she was there and she lost. Okay, well, obviously, if it was that big of a deal and it made the women compete with the men, then there would be 6, 7, 8 women in the final 8. And there's 1. There's exactly 1. So maybe this handicapping actually does work okay. Maybe it's fine.
Does Fargo even do Chinese 8-ball?
The Chinese tend to. I think the Chinese, and I don't mean this derogatively. I think they tend to ignore anything outside of China as far as.
I think so.
Yeah, they do it their way, and that's it, and they're happy with the way they do it, and they do it.
Okay.
And of course, these guys go and sign up. You know, Gareth Potts goes and signs up there. He's got sponsors. He's got responsibilities, obligations there. He's going to go and play it. You know, Chris Mellon as well. He's over there. He's got a lot of sponsors over there. He's got obligations over there, so he goes and plays.
We probably get paid to give.
Do they like it? Do they think it's fair? Of course not. But yeah, they go and they play.
Well, it's fair in what sense? I mean, this is ultimately my point of all this. Like everybody hates a handicap once that's the tipping point for them losing, right? The Yubo guy that's he just won the chair for this. He probably still doesn't think it's unfair because he hasn't lost. If he loses the final, gets double dipped by this woman, he'll probably say, yeah, it's unfair. And we're going to completely ignore the fact that she played amazing pool with the handicap. So now we're gonna look at the handicap.
Nobody's ignored that. We've said several times that she played amazing pool.
Well, yeah, I know.
Which for me is the only reason I need for her not to get a handicap. Seeing the way she plays the game, she doesn't need a handicap. She's being generalized. She's been put in a box. She's been put in the female box rather than a pool player box. Now, for me, I think she should be seen as a pool player, not as a female.
She's being put in a box that applies. She's being put in a box that it currently applies to every single woman that played in this field, including Kelly Fisher, and may still include her. We don't know yet because she hasn't been beat twice. She's still in the tournament. We're waiting to find out. If she loses her next match and she gets 3rd place, are you still going to say, well, she plays too good, she shouldn't get a handicap, and she didn't win the tournament?
I would say that she should.
How does pool handle identifying as a different sex?
Well, we can't talk about that because none of us are qualified to even talk about that. That's why I ignored it to begin with. I mean, at the end of the day, sure. I mean, if I put on, the whole thing is.
Oh, but be careful, Nate. There's nothing wrong with somebody. There's nothing wrong with one of the top men now turning around and saying, "I identify as a woman," and they will get that 1-ball handicap in the next event there for 730,000. How do you stop that from happening? How do you stop that from happening? It's a whole different discussion. I don't want to go down that road. Yes, I'm just saying, you're saying that to turn around and say. And again, you can't base it on gender or it should be based on ability, you know?
Well, then that's like saying that then why shouldn't why shouldn't female golfers, why should they get their own tour? They should be playing with Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy and Justin Thomas, because it's just a golf ball and you're just hitting it with a stick, right? Or the women's
no, it's completely different.
Come on.
It's completely different.
No, it's not. Why? Because pool doesn't have a single thing that would give an advantage to men over women.
Women have been given opportunities to qualify for the Open. They've been given opportunities to qualify for tennis majors, for darts, for everything, but they're not given a handicap in order to help them to do it.
Right.
You can try, and if you want to do it, do it.
Sure.
We're not going to give you a handicap to make sure that you've got a chance to do it. You do it on your own merit.
Golf in the men's Open.
And if you're good enough, you're good enough.
And what I'm talking about is, if you're going to already have an event with a predetermined handicap, saying that this woman shouldn't get it when the rest do is ludicrous, just because she's having success.
But I'm not basing it on her success. I'm basing it on the fact that she plays too good to be given a handicap.
Yeah.
And she still might not win the tournament.
But
the fact that she
then maybe the person who beats her just plays really is the one person in the tournament. She got beat by one guy.
And that was my argument with Gareth Potts. And you're like, no, it's because she's a woman. Like, maybe she just actually played good, and Gareth just
which is why she shouldn't get a handicap.
We don't know that because the handicap was used.
Regardless, at the end of the day, like, you can say that we can't just give it to women, but at the end of the day, the women had this and they're still not there. So the fact that if you're not going to have a women's event and you're going to make it a co-ed event, and this is how you're going to make it a co-ed event, then going back and saying that the handicap is unfair because she plays too good, knowing that going in, it doesn't, your argument, I just don't think holds water. This is what the event is.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. That is what the event is. They make the rules and you go and play it if you want to play it. What I'm saying is that a handicap should not be based on gender. Regardless of what sport you're playing, it should not be based on gender. It should be based on ability.
Well, then don't put the men or women together in anything. The point is that they do. And you can't just make it open, because every single sport, including pool, it favors the men. You can't put women out there with the men rugby players and say, well, if you're going to play with the men, this is what you got to do, right? So if you're going to force them to play together, you have to have it some sort of way that gives it a fair. But
Nate, you've entered tournaments that you would need a handicap to win, but you still entered them to play. Did you expect a handicap? Did you go to the tournament and this is not fair? I'm not as good as the rest of them. I want a handicap. No, you entered the tournament knowing you couldn't win it, knowing that you're not good enough.
But there's a big difference between what you're saying and a tournament that creates a tournament specifically with the idea that there are two sets of players that are going into it.
So you enter a tournament and there's a female in there who is better than you, and you play against her and she gets a handicap because she's a female. Do you think that's fair?
What does the rest of the field look like?
Is it the best players in the world? You have to play this person. You have to play this person. You've got to play somebody. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's male or female. You have to play me. You've got to play
against me. It does matter, though. That's what I'm saying. Is it does matter.
You've got to play me, and I get a handicap against you.
If it's a state tournament, so because last week was a state tournament. If it's a state pool tournament with all of the best players in the state, and I have to give a spot to a women's player who is being forced to play with the men, and she plays better than I do, and I have to give her a game or two games, I'd be okay with that, because the handicap isn't for me.
Mate. That's not sport.
It is if you're going to. If you're going to force,
we do have.
If you're forcing them to be in there, that's the point. Is this tournament
forcing anybody to do anything? You just said that the men aren't being forced to play in this event. Right now. You're just saying the rules are made and the men are not being forced to play in it. So I would say to you, the women are not being forced to play in it. They'd be stupid not to with this kind of handicap.
No, you're missing what I'm saying. The men and the women are being forced to play together. That's a tournament director choice. Right, so if I'm forcing the men and the women to play together,
they just didn't make a women's event.
That's my point. They don't have a choice. They put them together, and it's a tournament. I'm looking at it from a tournament director's perspective, not from a player's perspective.
We have an interesting case in Wisconsin that has an example of this, and we have one female player in Wisconsin who has a ranking in Wisconsin that's called grandmaster. Okay. In our team events in the master division, you can have 2 masters play on the team. But in this case, you can have this gal play on the team in the place of a master, 2, because she's a grandmaster, considered, because she's just the best woman pool player in Wisconsin and has been for a million years. So that's kind of an example of basing a position on the ability of the player to a higher position initially, because they're just a female player, but better than all the rest. So you make a division for them. She's the only one in it, I believe, in Wisconsin. She's the only female grandmaster.
You're talking about Pam Kelly?
Designation. Yes.
Yeah, and she's been told that she can no longer play with the women.
Yeah, she can't play with the women at all in the master division because she's a grandmaster, the only one. And that's based on ability.
For now, apparently.
For now, whatever. Yeah.
At the end of the day, this system seems to me to make it very competitive, at least closer to competitive for the men and the women to play together. I don't see a reason why there's an issue with that.
No, nobody in Wisconsin has an issue with that.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about in this tournament in China. The men and the women they found a system that seems to work to at least make the women competitive. And I mean,
yeah, I agree with Jim on that. This particular
we can make jokes. Yeah,
is not right.
Well, we can make jokes about like identifying and whatever. And I mean, there's nothing that we can do about that.
Even regardless of that, that was a total different subject.
I know. I'm just referring to
that. Right. That this particular in 8-ball, especially, it is just such a huge thing. I am surprised that there wasn't.
If it was a huge thing, there would be more women that are there.
Because
at the end of the day, there's
this rule in 8-ball. I'm surprised that there isn't more females in the top 10 in the end of this tournament.
Well, this goes exactly to what I'm talking about. It's a huge spot. It is. We all agree. Like, we can start there. All of us agree that this is a massive spot. And what I'm saying is, even with this massive spot, we still do not see women being populated towards the end of the tournament. And that's all I'm saying at this point is maybe this is actually pretty good for Asian pool. I mean, maybe this makes it interesting.
Women entered to begin with.
I don't know what the breakdown was. I wish I knew. Maybe somebody out there in the comments.
The numbers were way skewed.
Yeah, maybe. But I know that there would
be more women in the finals.
Yeah. Jim is not happy with this. It's a good debate, though.
I've made my position clear on it. For me, gender is not important. You're as good as you are, and if you have a handicap, it's based on how good you are.
So do you think? So Jim, let me ask you this: do you think that there is an advantage that can be had by men in this game, or do you think that all people, regardless of height, weight, size, genetics, there is no difference at all?
No, there is differences. I mean, this has been looked into quite a lot. There is differences just between the ears about how competitive men are and women. Women are more they show more empathy. They are less likely to actually want to bury somebody into the ground when they're playing sports. This is just in general. Some of them are more masculine orientated when it comes to that. They just want to destroy. But I'm talking about in general. They're not as competitive as men are. We obviously, any sport, you have to start, if you want to get to the top of the game, you have to start at a young age. And, me, I've got 2 girls at home. If I had 2 boys, I'd be taking them round the pool room. But would I take my girls round the pool room? Times are different now, but if you're talking about 30, 40 years ago, pool rooms were stinky little places or whatever with some, unsavory characters in it, you're more likely to let your boy go around there with his mates than you would be to let your daughter go around there, And even if you go into a pool room nowadays, it is mainly, if you look at the kids that are in there, the young people, it's mainly males rather than females that are in there. So it's been more accessible to guys. It's seen more as a male orientated sport.
Okay, so then from a physical,
so there's less at play, but it doesn't mean that you don't occasionally get 1 or 2 that come through that are just as good, because No, physically, it doesn't really make any difference.
You don't think that there's a single physical advantage that men have over women in this game?
Well, you obviously do think.
Well, I'm asking what you think.
Nothing significant, no.
Look at this beard. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, Rob, what do you think? Do you think that there are any physical advantages men have over women?
Well, I can honestly say the only physical difference, barring general size, guys being a little bit taller, overall, generally, is breasts. Being when you look at some girls playing pool,
huge
who are
difference.
well endowed, you should watch the way they stand at the table and the way they kind of manipulate that stick.
Their back foot is always behind their front.
I talk to women about this, and they do adjust and stand differently because of that. So there is that. There is that
absolutely.
difference.
I have a really terrible.
Accommodate for that is up to them, or how they adjust for that.
Well, I can tell you now, Chris Melling has got larger breasts than most of the women that I've seen playing pool, and he doesn't seem to worry about it too much.
Well, I know a few guys that do.
I have a really terrible joke about breast size and pool, but
okay, let's hear it.
I don't want to be tactless either, because anyways, I used to say jokingly that a certain I don't even want to say it. I can't do it. Maybe at the bar.
All right, I'm not trying to get canceled, so I'm gonna cancel.
We're
right.
Not getting
We're
not getting canceled.
okay.
There could well be a slight correlation there. That will affect your technique, I guess, in some way or form. But everybody's got a different technique. If you look at the way that if you look at the way that Sufi holds his cue, Mohammed Sufi, we've talked about him a lot recently. If you look at the way he holds his cues, he could have double F breasts hanging from his chest, and the cue wouldn't be anywhere near them. So
the point, Jim, is there. The point that I'm making is there are absolutely physical differences. There's no way that you can look at men and women and say that, what he said is an example of one. Generally speaking, when you watch women, especially when they have larger breasts, they end up having to have their back leg behind their front foot. So they actually open up their entire stance so that they can get their chest further back into their stance and out of the way of the cue. Well, if you're going to be standing with a completely it's not stable. Your base is just not stable. It can't be stable. It cannot be as stable, especially when you start talking about big strokes.
That's not true. That's not true. Mizrak had maybe the best stroke ever, and he stood out of the way because he had a big gut, and he had to get out of the way of his key. It was the same thing, but he had a big.
Okay, so you're talking about like one person in the entire history and saying, "All right."
Buddy Hall's the same way. It's an old school American style.
Look at the old snooker players. Look at this.
Your gut is a full foot, and your gut is a full foot behind.
What I'm saying is that their side caddy. Those are the sideways stance is an American stance. The snooker stance is a squared stance.
What I'm saying is their back foot
to approach the same way. You can be extremely stable and extremely secure in your stance, standing to the side of your cue.
Yes, with an archer stance. What I'm saying is their back foot is behind that. They go behind that.
Well, I mean, maybe if you had a diagram or some kind of whiteboard or something. But
that's not what Bob says here. But when I lean over the pool, my nuts get crushed once in a while when I'm stretching out.
It's a problem. It's definitely a problem.
It is not something that men, generally speaking, have to think about. And to use the gut as an example, that's just no. There's the gut is a full foot behind where the chest is, almost
below.
Yes, right. I mean, by the time that you get to your
gut,
all
I'm saying is that there's a remedy for that. There's a remedy for that. You want to create clearance. Mark Wilson this is how he teaches the stance. He's helped Karen Kaur, who has a snooker background and used to stand more square to the ball, and that was an issue, creating clearance for herself. And he got her standing more sideways, and it was disorienting at first because she's got years of programming, and then now she's stable and it's out of the way. It's a non-issue. So let
me ask you this then, Ray. Do you think that if she had that stance originally and didn't have to worry about the actually changing her stance to make it work for her chest, do you think that she would play better pool with what she does naturally or what she had to change to?
No.
That's my exact point. That's my exact point. Women cannot do what's optimal because they don't have the ability to. So
No,
if you do something that's not optimal,
No. I think her original stance was not better than what she has now. I think she's become. I think she's
probably
her original stance was a snooker stance.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Well, it's been proven that the snooker stance is not optimal for playing pool. Look at how the break goes. The snooker stance, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
Women, Kelly Fisher has struggled with her break throughout her whole career because she has too much of a square snooker stance. She doesn't get the power through it, you know.
Yeah.
So you think that that's the only reason why you don't think that she can't get the power because she's just a woman and doesn't have testosterone to build muscle mass?
Absolutely, 100%. I would destroy Tyler Steyer in an arm wrestle, but he can outbreak me by about 20 miles an hour. No problem. It's not about strength.
We got to set up an arm wrestling match
Not
with
about
you and Tyler. We got to set up an arm wrestling match with you and Tyler.
The kid can outbreak me by about 20 miles an hour. But an arm wrestle, it's not about strength.
He doesn't break the balls that hard.
Oh, come on, Nate. Jesus Christ.
He doesn't break the balls that hard. He's not breaking them at 27 miles an hour. He's breaking them at like 20.
Yeah. He's got the timing.
He does not break the balls at 27 miles an hour. He doesn't break
timing. It's not muscles that create speed in a break, Nate. It's timing. It's how you hit the white. It's about your.
So why are you?
But muscles don't give you the biggest break in the world.
And did I say they did?
Yes, you did.
He doesn't.
Yes, you did. You turned around and said, "Is Kelly's break maybe not been great because she doesn't have the muscles for it?"
No, I was.
I'm saying to you, absolutely 100% not. It's got nothing to do with that.
It does absolutely have something to do with it. But what I'm saying is you can't
say in Wisconsin. Skinny little guy, the best break, hardest ever I've ever seen.
What is that noise?
All right, gents, I got to run. I'll be back.
Okay.
What I'm telling you is that sure, can Kelly Fisher theoretically swing as hard as Tyler? Well, let's just say the average breaker, sure, but she has to be swinging at 90% to do that, where men can swing at 70% to do that. And if you're swinging at 70% to get the same amount of energy, you're going to be able to control 70% a lot easier than you control 90%.
Robert Visnick, before it disappears, I would say DeLuna has one of the biggest breaks on the planet. I would say correct. DeLuna's got one of the biggest breaks on the planet. Yeah?
Sure.
Does he outbreak Jason?
Quality or speed?
Speed. Does he outbreak Jason?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who can bench press the most?
Who's the what?
Who can bench press the most out of the two of them?
What I'm
Jason.
I think Jason comfortably, I would say.
Yeah, well, I think Kelly Fisher could probably bench press more too. It doesn't change what I'm saying.
Well, it does. You're saying that
it's a joke.
Because you're saying because of strength, physical strength will give you a harder break. It's not true.
What I'm saying is, speed-wise, hit-wise, having muscle is not going to hurt you. Technique is all really what does it.
You know where I saw that with Kachi in his breaks in the last tournament that he won. I mean, he was overpowering that rack every break. And that had to do with his size.
I mean, all we're doing is talking about a bunch of men and then saying because it's the case with men that it automatically translates to women.
No, I'm saying that your physical strength is not directly correlated to how hard you can break the pack
with
ball.
Men, always with men. So you think that women and men should be able to break the balls the same speed, is what you're saying? If they wanted to.
All right, let's look at tennis. I would say that Roger Federer and Serena Williams can probably lift probably about the same amount of weights. Can Serena Williams hit a tennis ball as hard as Roger Federer?
And that's my exact point. No.
But she's stronger than him. Probably. I would guess she could probably lift just as much as him.
Might.
So you're happy to admit that tennis, men can hit the ball way harder than women, but you refuse to admit that men can hit the ball naturally more easily than women.
That's not what he just said, Nate.
That's not what I just said.
That's not what he just said.
Technique.
Turn your head around, Nate.
Your wingspan has a lot to do with it.
So Serena Williams doesn't have technique. Serena Williams doesn't know enough about tennis to be able to have enough technique to hit a ball, is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying that her strength is not dictating whether or not she can.
So what does?
Technique.
Okay, so you're saying that she doesn't have technique.
I didn't say she doesn't have technique. I'm saying that, all right, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. Roger Federer hits the ball just as hard as him, but Rafael Nadal picks up...
Yeah, but you're going back to men again. You're always between men. Name me one woman in history that's been able to hit a ball as well as the average men's tennis player that you don't even know.
Well, Serena. If you're talking about the average men's tennis player,
no, the average men's tennis player hits the ball like 130, 140. The best she can do is like 108, 10, like 110.
Yeah, talking about the serve.
Yeah. Across the board. And Serena Williams was partially as good as she was because she hit the ball harder than any other women.
So you're saying that women cannot break because they're women? Or they don't hit it as hard because they are women?
saying that there has got to be some sort of physical thing between men and women where maybe they can hit it close to as hard, but I've never seen a woman break the balls as hard as Jeff DeLuna.
How about the fact that up until now they've never had to practice it? They've never had to do much. Kelly Fisher's never really had to practice a break because it's not been the difference between winning and losing. She's never had to develop a break. She's never had to spend the thousands of hours or hit the thousands of breaks that Tyler has in order to develop his break, in order to become competitive. Because let's be honest, I won't say she's had it easy, but she's never needed that extra dimension to her game until she started playing with the men and Matchroom did these events. And then it became quite obvious that likes of herself, Christina Tkach, that their break wasn't up to the standards that would give them the opportunities against the men, whereas against other women, they didn't need those opportunities because they were getting the opportunities through other things.
So is that the same case for tennis and golf? Because Rory McIlroy is regularly flying the ball 350 yards right now in golf. And the Michelle Wie was mentioned in there. If she hits a 300-yard drive, that's huge. The best tennis women player in the world are hitting the ball around 100 miles an hour, and every man in the top.
Yeah, but golf is strength has a huge value.
No, it's not. Rory McIlroy's 5'10" and 170 pounds.
Oh, you're saying he's not strong? Have you seen how he's built? He's built like an absolute tank.
He is built like that.
Then Bryson DeChambeau, he disappears, spends 2 years in the gym, comes back and starts hitting 400-yard drives. Look how he's changed physically to do that.
Why can't women do that?
Why was he not doing it before?
Why he was hitting 350 and now he's hitting 370. He was still smashing the ball. You're right.
Yeah, he's doing it a lot, but now he's only having to go 80% to get it that far because he's buffed himself up.
Okay, so now let's look at the woman Bryson DeChambeau. Does she exist? No. If she spent 2 years in the gym doing exactly what Bryson DeChambeau did, how much do you think she'd be hitting at 370? No, because women are just genetically different.
She'd get the same percentage increase,
which would still be 50 yards behind that at best.
Perhaps. That's because
there's a genetic difference in every sport: golf, pool, basketball.
You can't turn around and say you can't compare golf to. Perhaps I shouldn't even have compared tennis to pool, but you certainly cannot compare golf to pool, where your height, your strength, your physical ability has a massive difference in golf compared to what it does in pool.
Ping pong.
Yeah, yes, but you're willing to admit that there's a genetic difference in every single sport, basically. Name me, but we agree: tennis, golf, rugby, whatever it is. There's a genetic difference. But pool is this magical unicorn where there's no difference at all, and nothing should be. Everybody should play the same.
It's not this magical unicorn. There's plenty of sports that like that. It's not a magical unicorn.
Like what?
Chess.
That's not a sport.
No,
how's that a sport?
Player. There's a lot of top chess players that have got a lot more money in their bank account than pool players.
Well, there's also a lot of 16-year-olds that are making $1 million a year playing Fortnite. You gonna call that a sport?
They would.
Sure, and I would say that me sitting here on my computer drinking coffee and slapping myself in the face is a sport. Should I get paid millions of dollars for it?
Yes.
Darts is not a sport.
Darts is not a sport. Why is it not a sport? Because there's not enough physical effort put into it.
Well, we've already
How much
discussed
physical effort's put in a pool?
I don't think that pool's a sport either.
Okay,
so now
you're going down a different road to say that pool is not a sport; it's a game.
I think it could be played as a sport, and there are some athletes that do. Tyler Steyer, Niels Fyan, players like that who actually take it serious on and off the table physically. Albin treats it as a sport, but you can't tell me right now that Buddy Hall treated this as a sport. Or, players like that, players that are 300 pounds. And, a lot of people
because you didn't need to be athletic to play it. And you still don't need to be athletic to play it. The athletic part, for me, somebody who keeps himself fit like Albin does, Federer's in good shape, Josh is in good shape. That helps you when it comes to tournament play, and you've got long days. And then at the end of the day, you're just feeling a bit fitter than the 250-pound guy who's been eating hamburgers all day and was up all night gambling. That puts you in a good spot against that guy at the end of the day, when it's getting down to the grind. That's it.
So it's a sport for one of those two and not for the other one, because there's an entire culture of this game that treats it that way. Is my point. Can it be a pool? Can chess be a sport? Sure, if it's treated as a sport, you're training on it. Let's not get bogged down in stuff like that. Look, at the end of the day, to say that there is an absolute easy to see, I think Gord Kerr, that's a good thing for the 290-yard drive for a woman, and that was jaw-breaking. Or that was like groundbreaking. That was, yeah. At the end of the day, you cannot agree. I just don't understand how you can agree that there is zero physical advantages men have over women in this game. And so we should.
I didn't say there was zero. I said they're negligible. I don't see the correlation between the difference in the standard of the top women, or how few of the top women. I don't see that the physical differences make up that difference. I think the difference is too big for it just to be physical. It's also opportunities, it's willingness, it's competitive edge, it's the opportunities that they're given. There's so many more things other than just your physical ability to play the game.
It's possible.
Way more. It's not just, I'm a woman, so I can't play. Well, no, you can be.
Well, that's not what I'm saying.
Physically, they can all be a Kelly Fisher. They can all be a Simming Cheng. But are they being given the opportunities? Are they starting at a young enough age to go through the ranks? Is there a system built for them to actually come and compete? Now, in Asia, there seems to be a reasonable system, because there's quite a lot of young cueists. I'll say, maybe pool's not getting more, but snooker is getting a lot of them coming through. And they're showing that if you're supported and you're given the opportunities, then females can play at a very, very, very high standard. And
with the handicap, with the handicap. Without the handicap, there wouldn't be a woman.
Handicap. There's no handicaps. There's no handicaps in snooker, and there's women who are getting very, very close to qualifying for the men's tour.
They're getting very, very close to qualifying for something that puts them 60th in your country.
No, it puts you in the top 128 in the world, the entire world.
Snooker. Yeah, and 100 of those players are from the UK, right? 100 of the top 128 is probably in the UK.
Well, you might want to read that list, mate. The majority of them are from Asia
or China.
Until they get banned for cheating and stuff like that. But no, yeah. It's not all just UK. But
we'll say half are UK and half are like Asia, and then there's 10 or something other from other countries, right?
You wouldn't be far off with that, yeah.
Okay,
because snooker is generally based in the UK and in China.
And snooker is even more of a sport that requires little amounts of power, and women still can't compete there either. So there's got to be something genetic.
It's opportunities.
Oh, that's. I mean,
as well. You can't just honestly. You cannot put it down. You can't put it down. You cannot just put it down to physical handicap. There's lots of. You were right at the start of the show. We should really have. We really need to have a woman on here to bite back on this, because I don't think the women would agree with you. I don't think you would get a Kelly Fisher or a Christine Tkach turning around saying the reason that I'm not as good as Jason Shaw is because I'm a woman. They would never say that. They would never narrow it down to that is the reason why they're not as good. They would never allow that to be said. I think it's slightly sexist and a little bit disrespectful. like I do the handicap, just to say, just because you're a woman, you will be given this handicap. I think that's a little
I'm
bit
not saying just because you're a woman. I'm saying because you do not. I mean, testosterone is a huge thing, right? At the end of the day, for competitive edge, and not only competitive edge, constant.
But that's a mentality
edge.
as well. That's a mentality. It's not just a physical thing.
That's like no. That's like saying no. It's not a mentality thing when it's a physical thing. I mean, you can't fake testosterone. You can't just say like
it doesn't just testosterone doesn't just build physical muscle. Testosterone creates anger. It creates competitive edge. It can, and I said this before. There's been studies that have been made to say that yes, there can be a correlation that men are just more competitive. They want to destroy. They want to hurt other people. They want to, they're much more competitive. And that comes from the testosterone side of it. Yes, that could well be, but you narrowed it down to muscle.
Which is,
and I'm saying no, muscle is not. Okay, now you want to make it testosterone, then yes, I'll go along with that, because that affects your psyche as well. It affects how you think. It affects the empathy you have for somebody else who's also trying to achieve something in the same field as you. Men don't give a crap about the guys that's on the other side of the table. Women are more likely to turn around and say, got a bit lucky there.
If it's all based off opportunity, then why aren't Chinese women winning these?
And I also didn't say it was all based on opportunity. I said it's all part of it. I never said it's all based on anything. I'm saying it's a combination of a whole load of things. You turned around and said it's because they're not as strong as men.
While you're saying that it might be disrespectful for me to say that Kelly Fisher can't compete with the top players because she's a woman, I think it also might be the same way that you're saying that there's never been a single woman in the history of this game who has had an opportunity that a man has had. Because at one point in time, if one woman in history,
I also didn't say that. Why are you generalizing everything I say?
You're saying that
you cannot. If I turn around to you and say the opportunities have not been there for women as much as they have for men. There's a million men get the opportunity to play pool because they're allowed to go to the pool hall when they're 16-year-old, whereas girls, their fathers are more protective. They turn and say, "You're not hanging around that pool hall." So less girls get the opportunity to go there. You cannot generalize that and say that women just don't get the same opportunities. No, there's not the same amount of them coming through, because that's the way society works, that girls have been protected over the years from places like pool halls and stuff like that. It's not seen as a place that girls are supposed to go to, and it's still a little bit like that. It's better than it was 30 years ago. If you ask Kelly about going to pool halls and back then in the UK, there wouldn't have been many girls hanging around there. They wouldn't be allowed to. The parents would be saying, "No, you're not going to hang around there. It's a dump. It's full of idiots. It's full of gambling. It's full of." It's just not the kind of. It was not the kind of places that you wanted your daughters to be hanging around in. Whereas your sons, like always, let him go. He's fine. He'll be all right. He'll be back when he wants to be back. That's just the way parents were with their kids. So a lot more boys got the opportunity to play the game, pick up the game, get better at the game, enjoy the game, and then they all come through. And then for every one girl who actually decided they wanted to play it, there was 200 or 300 guys playing it. So obviously then the majority rise to the top, and it's more difficult for the women to push through and become top players because there's just less of them. It's like any sport. It's the same with international soccer. It's no surprise that the best teams in the world consistently through history have the largest population because they've just got more people to choose from. So they only need 11 of them. 11 out of 200 million, you're going to get 11 good ones. 11 out of 5 million, you're probably struggling to get 11 good ones. It's just the way,
Well, we can leave it there. At the end of the day, to say that there is zero genetic advantage that men have over women, at least to actually make it.
I didn't see that either.
At least I just said, at least to make a big enough difference is just. I think it's silly, but it's something that we could just agree to disagree on, and that's okay.
Okay, I didn't say there was zero genetic difference.
You said it was negligible.
Physical. You said physical, and I said that is negligible in my opinion.
Sure. And I think it's a huge difference. And at the end of the day, I hope that this woman snaps this thing off with this handicap and comes back next year and snaps it off so that you can be right. But I know that without this handicap, Kelly Fisher's not making the top 17. This girl's not making the top 8. And to force women into this tournament with men, at least to be able to have a chance of competing because they don't have their separate thing, there's got to be some sort of handicap that gives them advantage. And I think that they found one that's really good and really close. And I think that this is awesome to see. And I wish that given this opportunity that this woman has, many other women will look at that as inspiration and practice their butts off so that they can get into this tournament and have the same level of success.
Very good. And I say it's unfair that I would be forced to play a tournament and give a handicap to somebody who's better than me. End of discussion.
Rob, what do you think?
Well, I'm kind of dizzy. It's just like I mentioned
Rob fell asleep 3 times during all that.
I mentioned ping pong a little while ago as a sport that would be equal and no handicap necessary. And what I've seen is this ping pong match. Boom, boom, boom. My head is kind of just, I'm bobbing up and down between you guys.
While I'm not a ping pong expert,
all this, everything you guys have said, has been talked about for years. And if the Chinese want to go about it this way, well, that's it.
Absolutely.
At least here in the U.S., if the women want to get in the U.S. Open, they can.
Yeah,
pay the money, get in and play with the guys, and some do.
If I decide to run my own tournament and I put money into it and I say I'm going to organize this and I say this is the rules, if you don't like it, stay away. Yeah, that's it. The tournament is there and that's what it is, and you go and do it and you play it and it's fine. Somebody's walking away with 730,000. That's pretty nice.
There's tons of.
I would love to see a tournament. I would love to see a tournament for our guys that's got a first prize. So can you imagine that? If we get to the stage, that's where we want to get. We want it to get to the stage, regardless of whether it's 8 ball, 9 ball, 10 ball, whatever game, even if it's a bastardized game that we don't even know yet. If it's prize money of 700,000 for first prize, we're happy to get. We're loving it.
Where if the women get into the tournament, they get to spot a game.
Yep.
We spot them all a game, and nobody complains. No. It's just the way it is. If you don't like it, don't get in. So it is that simple. But there is 2 sides to the story. And you can go back and forth all day long on it. So that's where
we thought we were going to struggle for some talk about
this
today.
This particular rule about 8 ball in China, I do not like it. I do not think that's right. So I'm on Jim's side on that. Now, the reason for it, that's up for grabs. But the fact that it's there, don't like it.
Just for everybody that's out there watching, we actually had a conversation before we went live, worried that we might not have anything to talk about. Shall we just open it up? Shall we just open it up for audience participation and let everybody who's watching decide what we're talking about? And now we've spent.
Well, I almost left about 10 minutes ago, so really. So I do have some things to say.
Yeah, Rob, you wanted to talk about some 3 cushion stuff, didn't you?
I did want to mention a few things. Yeah, there was, and this is a U.S. national regional tournament that anybody in the country can come to. It's called the Bob Keller Open 3 cushion tournament, and it's held in Madison, Wisconsin, at a private club. And it's a wonderful club. 4 tables. We take 32 players.
Are there any handicaps?
What's that?
Are there any handicaps?
No.
Yeah, you could take one of the balls off the table.
No, it's a straight up. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's cute, Jim. It's a straight up 3 cushion tournament, no handicap. Anybody can come and play in it. Just pay your entry fee of a couple $100. And I did want to mention the winners of the tournament. The top 4 players in the tournament. The winner was Brian Half. Second place, Olegario Gonzalez. Third place, Eric Valerio. And fourth place was Rivera Gonzalez. And their winnings were $1,700, $1,350, $1,100, and $875 for first, second, third, and fourth. Those payouts are pretty respectable for a 3 cushion tournament and a regional type event. Now, by regional, I mean Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota and Iowa.
No, one day event.
It was actually a 4-day event.
Okay, yeah.
32 players.
So Thursday,
you are investing quite a bit of your time for that.
You are. There's 4 days: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But they paid down 16 places in the event. So if you don't qualify, the top 8 don't qualify, you still get some money, and then anybody can win money if they get a high run in each bracket. So there was that. You can win a little bit of money that way. So, but money for these players, I don't believe is the number one motivation for the 3-cushion players. I think it's the plaque, being number one, competing and being number one. There is a story along with this that I have to talk about for just a minute. One of the players in the tournament,
I don't know. I'm sorry, Rob. I just don't know. It's not like Jim and I haven't been talking for the last 50 minutes. I'm not sure if we can fit you in.
This is like 5 minutes.
Let me have a look. No,
Just
I'm good. I'm good for another 20.
So anyhow,
go ahead. You can talk.
One of the players in the tournament I hadn't played since pre-COVID, and he was a newcomer, been playing for just 3-4 years at the time, and I was just beginning 1 or 2 years. So we were both kind of matching up. We were in the same bracket playing each other. And I noticed something. About halfway through the match, every time he stroked, the last stroke, the final whole entire stroke from beginning to end, he had his eyes closed. Okay? He wasn't looking. And about halfway through, and it was kind of, in a way, it was a little bit unnerving to me. But then I thought to myself, well, maybe there's a trick here he's doing or something. It's just the way he wants to play. But I stopped him. It was like he was ahead like 12-6. And he was scoring points like crazy. He was playing great. But so I didn't want to interfere, but I had to say something. So I went, Eric, do you know that you close your eyes when you shoot? And he kind of hesitated, and I don't know if he really wanted to answer me or what he wanted. And he goes, well, yeah. I said, well, do you have a reason for that? I'd like to know what the reason is. And he goes, well, I'm trying something. I'm trying out something. And so I dropped it. I just let it go. And for the rest of the match, he closed his eyes the last stroke every time he shot. And he beat me like, I don't know, 25-15 or 16. He played great. He made some nice shots. He didn't miss any naturals that he had. And I thought, wow, I'm going to ask him some more when the match was over. And so I did. I questioned him just a little bit more. And it was something that he had somebody at home in his room in Chicago where he plays, or no, he plays out in Boston in Mason's place.
Amazing Billiards.
Amazing Billiards out there. That's his home, kind of his home area where he plays. So anyways, I thought about what he said, and I talked to some other players at the time about it. And of course, I felt as a competitor that it could have been, if I'd have let my mind go there, kind of a sharking technique, like, God, this guy just beat me with his eyes closed, holy cow. Where's the respect in that? Well, it really didn't have anything to do with that. It was exactly what he said it was. It was a method where he can disassociate his vision from his brain-body interaction. And what he was doing was he would check his stance. He would check the back of his stick where it was. He'd check his stroke and make sure in his preliminary strokes everything was the way he wanted it, and then close his eyes and shoot the shot. You've seen guys in pocket pool do this for kind of a trick. Like, hey, watch this. I can make the shot with my eyes closed. Well, what they're doing is their body knows exactly, once everything else is lined up, that they can make that shot. And it goes right in the hole. I've never seen a 3-cushion billiard player do that. And he was in this last tournament and played great. In the preliminaries, he lost 2 matches by 1 point, 25-24. his game is, in the last 4 years since I've seen him, really made some leaps. And I think part of that had to do with this training with his eyes closed and getting his brain to take over his body once his eyes had decided that's where they needed to be. And so this relationship between our brain, our eyes, and our body is kind of a interesting thing, because you see guys when they play pocket pool, what's the last thing they look at? Do they look at the object ball? Or do they look?
There's a great debate about this.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Some look at the object ball, some look at the cue ball, but there's a distinct reason for looking at the cue ball, and it's very similar to what you've said about closing your eyes. The whole closing your eye thing is a well-known training technique for snooker, for pool, for everything. The idea is that once you're down over the shot and you've chosen your alignment, if you have your stance correct and you've set yourself up correctly, once you're over and you've chosen the point on the cue ball that you want to hit the cue ball, you shouldn't need your eyes anymore because you've done the work.
Correct.
Now, there's also something to be said, or some people believe that by not looking at the shot when you're shooting it, you take the stress away from the shot as well. You see some players, they make a last second adjustment because they're not entirely sure if they're on line, or there's just a little movement, or they don't stroke the cue straight through because they feel like they have to manipulate the cue ball just a little bit more than what their alignment is allowing them to do, and then they miss shots. The idea of looking at the I've tried it, and people have said, do you look at the object ball last? Do you look at the cue ball last? And I've tried to focus on that when playing, and my eyes are just going everywhere, and I really don't know what I look at. There's a very famous snooker coach who says you should always look at the cue ball last, because again, if your alignment is correct, then all you need to do is to strike the cue ball in the correct place with your tip, and you will always be good. And also, it takes the stress away from the shot you're playing, because you're not focused on what happens. You're focused on, if I do this, it will happen the way I want it to happen, rather than looking ahead to see what is going to happen with my cue ball after I've hit it. Once you hit it and you say, right, everything should happen the way I think it's going to happen because I've done my preparation correct, I don't need to see what's happening. It also takes away you see people, they play a shot and they jump up off the cue,
right,
to see what's happened before the head comes up. That is also because you're looking too far ahead at what's going to happen, and you want to know too quickly if it's happened. Whereas if you're not looking at that far ahead, then you don't jump up to see.
Right.
This could be a fun discussion, though. So, Jim, or either one of you, I don't care. So the idea is so what you're saying right now is you're giving the argument for why you should look at the cue ball last. But when you learn to play the game,
I'm giving the argument of why some people do and why some people don't.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. But the last thing that you talk about was the cue ball last. You would all agree, I would think, that you would never learn the game playing that way, right? Because at the end of the day, when you learn to play the game, somebody tells you hit the center of the cue ball and try to make the ball, right? Yeah. And generally speaking, especially if you're a bar player who kind of grew up playing in the, your local pub or something like that. Ray's back. Hi, Ray. So did you hear where we were at, Ray?
No.
So we were talking about basically, should you look at the cue ball first, or the cue ball last, or the object ball last? And so basically Jim was giving the arguments for both of them. And I have a question, I guess, for the group now. When you learn to play the game, you should not be looking at the cue ball last, because generally speaking, everybody learns how to play the game by hitting the center of the cue ball and just cutting balls in wherever you need to go without applying spin or anything like that. So at what point in time do you think in your learning process of the game should you be switching over to making it more the cue ball last?
I think it's only situational. I think there's certain spots where, like, let's say you're elevated over a ball, and
sure,
the limits of the shot are crucial, and you can't apply inadvertent side spin, and you got to be very, very precise with your contact. And then you learn to stay still and trust your setup. and you're delivering an accurate stroke and you've done all your pre-shot stuff, that's the only time that I really ever consider looking at the cue ball last.
Sure, if you're jacked up, you're over a ball.
Yeah,
you can't look at the object ball. You have to look at the cue ball.
sure. Especially if it's all ball fouls and you really gotta, you can't dog it. You gotta make sure to hit that ball precisely. Where. So when the margin of error is very small in that situation, that's the only time I ever really consider looking at the cue ball last.
I had mentioned that when you were gone, I had played a guy in a 3-cushion tournament 4 years ago that every single shot on his, from beginning of a stroke to the back to through, he had his eyes closed.
Mm-hmm.
Every shot.
I've done that in practice.
The whole entire game.
Yeah, I've done that in practice to really.
It weirded me out a little bit as his opponent. Oh God, I got beat by a guy with his eyes closed.
Yeah.
But Ray, I've got a question for you. Are you aware of what you look at last?
Yeah.
See, I'm not. I've tried. People have asked me, "What do you look at last?"
Yeah.
And I get on my table and I say, "Right, well," and my head just goes crazy. I feel like my eyes are flicking. It's almost when you listen to yourself breathe.
Yeah.
Then it starts to change. And you don't know.
Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, it's for me anyway. If I try and focus on what am I looking at, then I feel like I'm not looking at what I should be looking at.
Oh, so basically, Jim, Schrodinger cat. Your game is that.
Yeah.
Is the cat alive in the box? Well, the only way that you can know is by opening it up and looking at it. Yeah. And the act of opening up and looking at it changes the outcome.
Exactly. Yeah. I've tried it and I don't know. I feel like I have both in view at all times. When I'm down on most shots, you talk about jacked up or jumps or whatever, then you don't, and then it's all cue ball. But I feel like I have both, in view. And yeah, I don't know what I look at last. I really couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Well, this player doesn't. He just did it. He did it for that one game, and I think he did it in my game because I was just a beginner player at the time, and he wasn't concerned whether he was going to win the game or lose the game if he tried. So it was, and he didn't want to say that to me to embarrass me or anything. So he was trying it, and I said, "Oh, it's okay. No, go ahead if that's what you want to do. I'm okay with it. You can do that. I'm fine. I'll just watch and be amazed."
Have you ever tried to play like a little bit cue ball first and see if it had an effect on your game?
I have experimented with both. Yes, looking at just the cue ball and or just the object ball. I know in pocket pool I look at the object ball last always, and in billiards I do occasionally do both, and sometimes I only look at the cue ball.
And Raymond, have you tried doing cue ball last and see what kind of effect it has?
Not in pocket pool. I haven't. No.
Not really. I think again it's situational.
Unless I have to, like Raymond says, if you're in a position where you want to make a clean hit, that's for sure. You don't want to foul or anything.
Like if I'm extended with the bridge and I got to make sure to hit the
right with the bridge. Yes, I most always do not look at the object ball last.
Right.
I'm looking at cue ball
unless I have a clear pathway and I'm just cueing the ball. Then whatever.
Correct.
But those situations are the only time I really look at the cue ball last. I think to Jim's point, there's a lot that's built into your subconscious that you don't really need to go into the weeds about. It's more about your process and your training and what you can repeat over and over again. I think a lot of, like in the comment, they're saying that your alignment, your tip position, your pre-shot, that's what your stance and your addressing of the ball. That's what that's for. It gives you that anchor so you can get down and know exactly what's going on. And like I've done exercises before where you get down and you close your eyes or
Well, that's the idea behind it. If you do have the fundamentals that are working for you, you have the pre-shot routine. You get your feet in the right place, you get your shoulders in the right place, and you get your chin, your alignment, your eyes are in the right place. I believe in dominant eye and getting over the cue correctly. That not everybody needs to have it in the middle. If you have that correct and you're online, the work is done. Your eyes don't need to be doing anything really after that.
Right.
Because your eyes will only create more problems for you like I said, I think before you came on, you players lift their head because
like
they
they
want
can
to see
do. And then
they want to see the result of their shot before they've actually performed their shot, and then the head comes up. If you don't have your eyes open, that never happens.
Yeah, I've seen where the dominant eye on which side of the ball you're cutting the ball on works against you. And I've seen players where if they can't cut a ball to the left and make it, they just can't do it. But if it's cutting it to the right, they make it every time. And I tried to work with a fellow who was like that, and that was visual adjustment to what side of the ball he was hitting it on. And once we got his head placed correct, then he was making the cuts to both sides. We just adjusted his head placement.
Yeah.
I don't feel strongly about it. I think whatever you do, it'll be fine. I don't think that I mean, ultimately, whatever you end up deciding with, whether it's the object ball or this is kind of like this to me is a lot like the debate of what's the best shaft out there. Well,
yes, I was going to say it's individual shaft, for everybody.
Yeah, sure. Ultimately, like, your game is what it is, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to maximize the 5% at the end of your game to give you an extra 5%. Well, if I just had this shaft, I would go from a 595 Fargo to a 600 Fargo. Or if I looked at the object ball last, I'd go from a 595 to a 599. Like, you're trying to optimize the tail end of your game, where at the end of the day, it's like, just practice, whatever.
Or if I didn't have to make the last ball playing 8-ball, I'd go from a 760 to an 800 Fargo.
Oh shit, Jim, you still wouldn't even win. You wouldn't get past 4 in a match in there, even with that.
Or how about in a game of rotation
personal,
where you can pick any ball you want in that rack after you break and take it off the table?
I said that as a joke, Jim, but I think actually you wouldn't make it past 2 in that against any player in that field.
2 what? Balls?
No, past 2 points in any match.
They're still called racks in that game.
Yeah. Okay. Racks. Right. You wouldn't make it past 2.
You might be right. It doesn't matter.
No, I mean, those tables are brutal. If like it, have you played Chinese? You've probably played Chinese 8-ball, right, Jim?
Mm-hmm.
Rob, have you ever had the chance?
Well,
you've played a lot of snooker on 8-ball.
I've played on a 12-foot snooker table with regulation balls. I don't see that's way harder than Chinese 8-ball.
It's the same game, basically.
Yeah, but pockets are smaller and way further away.
That's such a nonsensical comment, Nate. It's the same game, basically.
No way.
Well, I mean, you're playing 8-ball on a snooker table. That's essentially what he's saying.
Yeah, on a 12-foot snooker table. Yeah.
So you've done it. You've played, Ray?
Yes.
Played what? Snooker? Chinese
English,
8-ball?
Or Chinese 8-ball?
No, I haven't played any Chinese 8-ball or any English 8-ball. I played American 8-ball.
Is it a fun game?
I used to hate 8-ball. I used to really, really hate 8-ball as a young kid. And then the first time I played the U.S. Amateurs, I almost didn't make it out of qualification because of how bad I played 8-ball. And then I was like, I'm not going out that way in nationals. And so I played like nothing but 8-ball for 3 months. And then I was like, oh, this is a beautiful game. And then taught myself to like it, and then snapped off the U.S. Amateurs the first year. But it was I used to hate it. I used to think it was a dumb game. Now I really appreciate the game a lot.
I found that people who grow up on like 9-foots tend to play 9-ball as their first game, and people who grow up on 7-foots tend to play 8-ball as their first game. Yeah, but you're 95 years old.
It's a beautiful game. Straight pull is beautiful because it's very like it helps your 8-ball game quite a bit, and it really helps you address patterns and shot selection and unlocking balls. A lot of the skills that you managing around the stack and all these other situations.
Even one pocket also.
Oh, it's huge, yeah, for ball running. And Danny DiLiberto was a tremendous one pocket player, and he's 300 ball runner and straight pull, and absolutely, sure.
Yeah, Aaron Lake has absolutely, that comment is, that's why I think I always struggle with English 8-ball when I come over for like the Moscone Cup and I play on that, because the optimal point of any making any ball down the rail especially is to hit the rail going in. So 8-ball, 9-ball players on the tables over here, like the traditional 9-foot tables, you're conditioned to actually hit the rail going in. But if you hit the rail at all on an English 8-ball table going in, you miss the ball.
No, yeah, it's
really hard to actually like
really
switch over from that optimal potting point.
You kind of see the style of ball running in the snooker players that come over to play pool. They play a lot of these because they're used to playing these patterns where they're playing square to the pocket, and so they play shots way differently on a pool table, and they play these angles for these kind of square to the pocket stun shots down the center of the pocket. They play for these really like frontal angles to the pockets. They don't really play these like down the rail shots, or they avoid that at all costs because it's just built in. And it's not that they can't cut those in, but they're just so programmed.
They're conditioned to avoid leaving blind pockets.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
On an American pool table, you're not worried about leaving blind pockets. You're conditioned on the English 8-ball and snooker and the Chinese 8-ball not to leave yourself blind pocket shots.
Which is kind of why.
And if you do, it's always into the side.
Yeah, I think Darren's probably one of the most successful guys to come make that switch, right? Because he was a top English 8-ball player, and then came and really learned how to leverage all that stuff.
Melling as well. Melling was also a top English 8-ball player. Jason even won European championships in big events. But I mean, he made the transfer when he was still relatively young, very very young.
Neither of those two players have had the career that Darren's had.
No, correct.
Nowhere close. Yeah, nowhere close, really.
They don't hit a rail when they pocket a ball.
I was thinking about
his time, but
I was kind of thinking about the other day, like players that I admire the most, and like I would say that I model my game after, and I like the guys who think a lot and who kind of are more grinders or like move and use
Jonathan Hennessy.
No, that's a different kind of grinding. Guys like Darren.
That was the most. I mean, I only watched 10 minutes and I gave up. That was the most painful. That was the worst advertisement for pool there has ever been in fucking.
That's basically the player you just described, right?
Absolutely.
I love guys like Darren and Alex, who really use their brain and beat players with their mind and know how to like maneuver and tack. And I think Darren's there. And then there's elements that you weave in. Like I love the idea of like the high firepower that somebody like Shane has with his break and his jumping, and some of the ball striking stuff that guys like Jason and Earl, and that's all fun and stuff. And then Earl and then Efren, who kind of blends all these kind of like things together with his kicking and creativity and kind of thing. But yeah, of the modern guys, Darren's such a great guy to model your game after. Him and Alex, I think. And then I was thinking, and Alex, just has tortured everybody in the Philippines recently. He's beaten Raga twice, beaten Carlo Beato now again, big money matches. And I shouldn't say torture; they were close sets. I mean, these guys were all.
But he was down big against Raga.
But everybody's betting against him. Like if somehow he forgot how to play, and he's gaining confidence, and he's somebody to look out for, because the more he starts to execute at a kind of more premium level with his shot making, man, you guys are in a bad spot, And I think
I completely agree with you. I just see moments in matches, and perhaps that is just because he still doesn't 100% believe himself that he can improve his game.
I think he's teaching himself that he's
almost started again.
Yeah, he's beaten Raga. He's beaten Filler 3 times this year playing in tournament play. Like, I mean, and I think
he's almost trying to reinvent himself as a pool player. He's trying to reinvent himself, but I see it at the moment, and perhaps this is just a temporary thing while he is sort of reinventing himself. I see moments where he just, you see that the moment has become too much for him. That the dog that he has at the moment, I feel I see dog in him at the moment.
He's I think he's one of those guys,
and he has the shoulder goes in, and the twitch, and you saw it. Well, one of his breaks, he hit himself in the face with his cue break, and that's all tension. That's all. The moment is just building up inside him.
I think that Alex needs the moment to be bigger. I think that's how he really kind of like. He's one of those.
I think maybe he doesn't need to be. maybe he doesn't need the moment to be bigger, but he knows that if the moment is bigger, he'll handle it better than the guy on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
You know?
Because I know, like, the last time that he was really, really playing top level rotation, he was gambling a lot with Dennis in the Philippines. And Dennis would win the majority of the small sets, and Alex would win all the big sets. And it would be like, it was that kind of scenario for a while. And then Dennis came over here and started just, doing Dennis things. And, but I feel like Alex has always been that guy who rises to the highest pressure. And, he's kind of like gone through these lulls, and him, Mika, Niels now is playing very, very well. People are kind of sleeping on Niels, but he's had a couple deep runs in big events, and he's right there. He just won the what is it? The
Bucharest.
The Bucharest Open or whatever it was.
Or the Bosnian one, the one of the Balkan the Balkan tour.
Balkan Open, yeah. He played that one. He beat Sanjin,
Sanjin in the finals.
Sanjin looked so good at the Premier League pool the first 3 days. So he's another one who's kind of teaching himself really where he stands. But Niels is right there. Darren, before he had his situation, I think he was right close. He's had a couple. His thing.
I'm hoping to see him at the Super Billiards Expo. As of right now, he's planning on going.
Talk to him. He's still planning on not going over, but he was wanting to play. But it looks unlikely he's going to play. But he will do some little challenges at his booth with other people, with fans and whatever. And he'll hit some balls, and people will get to see him play. But he won't be playing in the events, I don't think.
Yeah, but I think there's a handful of these older guys: Mika, Niels. I think of Mika, Niels, and Alex as those three guys who are obviously on the older side of things. But all of them showing a lot of promise. Mika just won the Costa Rican Open event that they had down in Costa Rica, and has been on the business first match. A lot of big events. Yeah, he lost his first match, and he's been making that consistent deep run over and over and over again. So he's getting, I think, close as well to winning a big event.
But how great would it be if these guys were to start proving that? Hold on a minute. We're still around, these guys are legends in the game. It's like,
I think that's what he's saying.
I mean, but why shouldn't you? How old is too old to play pool? These guys, Niels is still a young guy. He's still a fit guy. He's still a top
43.
Player.
Niels
I would love one of those guys, a Mika or like you said, Mika.
Mika just turned 50.
Alex to snap off a big matchroom event and say,
Ralph.
Hey, listen,
Ralph is 54, and he
won a European Championships, which is not easy to do. Last year or the year before, I mean, he can still play. I mean,
Torsten.
Just to say to these young guys, we're not ready to pass the baton on yet to you guys. We're still around.
I think to keep it in perspective, Efren didn't come to the States and win his first event till he was like 34 or 35.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it was pretty old.
And he didn't even come then.
And
he didn't even actually come then. He sent his cousin to come.
Pushing 70, comes in third in the Derby.
Exactly. So I think people
blanking on the name again.
A good takeaway from that point is that young guys or guys that are managing life, and also like you have time. Pool is one of those sports that it's not football. It's not. You don't have to be 25 to be in your prime. You have a lot of time. Work on getting better. Work on improving, and don't feel like it's over for you just because it's 30 and you're just getting started. I mean, pool is one of those games you don't get into your prime until your late 30s and early 40s, really. And that
most people,
I mean, you have some guys who come out of the gate,
filler,
young Johnny Archer, Earl Strickland, those guys, Filler, Feder, those are anomalies, really. But usually it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, you can't use them as the norm. You can't use them as the standard for everybody because that's not the way it works. Even Sanchez Ruiz is taking everybody apart. But he's 31 years old. Yeah. He's been around for a long time, and then all of a sudden he's just exploded. That's the thing about a pool career as well. It's a very long career, and nobody just goes through.
Well, technically speaking, we don't know that Fedor or Josh are in their prime.
We don't know that.
We don't know.
We don't know.
They still have plenty of time to be better than they are, and nobody goes through it on an even plane. Yeah. And you're going to have moments where you just feel like the world is your oyster. But it's such a long career that it's going to be ups and downs and ups and downs. And you see it. We talked about Mika, we talked about Niels. They've had their moments where they almost sort of disappeared out of the limelight. They're still legends of the game. People still talk about them, but they talk about what they used to be able to do. And people then stop talking about what they could do in the future. But there is still a future at that age in this game because, you're not, just because you have a couple of bad years when you're 40 years old, it doesn't mean to say that your career's finished because, I mean, why would it? It's, like you said, it's not soccer. It's not,
Darren made a Hall of Fame career for himself in 10 years.
Yep.
Really, when he came here and started winning tournaments, it was, that 10-year span of his kind of dominance. I mean, that's a whole.
It was less than 10 years, even, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And he won, two U.S. Opens. He won a World Nine Ball. The guy found his groove.
He won all four of the. He won all four of the World Championships. He won the 8, the 9, the 10, and the straight American, which was considered as a world champion. I think he's the only one that's won all four of them. Yeah.
He ran that 200 and out, right? He said he broke the tournament record. Yeah.
Twice in that tournament. Yeah.
Darren's a beautiful. People forget how good Darren is. Like his all-around game, his 8-ball knowledge is fantastic. Straight pull. I mean, 100 to 200 ball runner. You know what I mean? Like one pocket is underrated. Because he's a fighter, man. I really love to see him. Yeah, I think so. It's just it's one of those things. I love this.
I got a crazy question for everybody. Okay, this is off the charts. All right. We've all seen players who've got strokes that are funny. And we wonder, how in the world can they ever make a ball with a stroke like that? Do any of you know a really good, maybe championship range type player who has the worst stroke you've ever seen?
The worst stroke?
Yes. Probably. The best player you've ever seen with the worst stroke.
But I think that's also subjective. That's like saying, could I use that stroke? I mean, everybody's got their own stroke. I would say that if I tried to hit a ball the way that Sufi hits it, I wouldn't even hit a rail. I'd hit the wall.
Okay, sure.
I wouldn't get close. It's the worst stroke. The worst stroke defines how good you are as a player.
I don't know. American, I might say Keith McCready for a past champion who was just Keith the craziest.
Yeah, he's up there. I'd say Moro Paez as well.
Sidearm kind of.
Yeah,
I think your stroke, the quality of your stroke is just my opinion. The quality of your stroke is how it holds up under pressure. That is what makes the quality of your stroke. Is it susceptible to failure if you get tense, if you're under the gun, and that doesn't really matter how it looks on a photograph or how it looks on TV.
Okay.
The quality of your stroke for me is, does it fail when you're under the gun?
Okay. Here, a comment. He has an awkward stroke. Roberts just mentioned that there. And Keith, of course, sidearm.
But the thing with SVB is you can hold a gun to his head and say, make this ball, and he'll still stroke it exactly the same as he stroked the previous 1,000. That's what makes his stroke good.
Right. How about you, Raymond? You know anybody that's kind of just an odd stroke, but they're really a good player?
Moro Paez had Alan Hopkins too had a very very short, punchy, jabby kind of stroke.
Okay.
Something you would never teach probably, but was a world-class player. Moro Paez the same way, was very jumpy and quick and jabby. Keith obviously had that kind of sidearm thing. Again, these guys have trained themselves to have. I mean, Bustamante has a very unorthodox stroke.
How about a fellow named Mike Davis? See, you remember him?
Mike has that arm. He doesn't.
Pumping?
He doesn't. He's up here the whole time.
Yeah,
he would never teach that. Sure.
I saw him play out in Vegas one year about 10 years ago, and I thought, wow, that's the craziest stroke I've ever seen. And this guy don't miss anything.
No, he's a strong player when he was playing his best for sure. A Mosconi Cup player.
Yeah, we see it in golf as well. You see guys through the years have had really strange swings, but as long as they're straight and they're on line when they contact the golf ball,
right,
then it doesn't really matter what they've done before and what they've done after. It's all about just that one moment of contact and the timing.
Sure,
and that's it. And it's kind of the same with a stroke, with the stroke and pull. But I mean, don't want to repeat myself. For me, it's, you know, can you do it when it really matters? Does it change when you're under pressure? Does it, you know?
Sure.
Is it susceptible to failure?
Boosting is probably the most beautiful to watch, the most fluid of the.
But it's also one you would never teach somebody.
Super unorthodox style strokes, and that's just completely. I think his is a good example. Efren's too, really. They're examples of
Efren's definitely
immersion. It's really just a natural immersion process, and what came out was who they are. You know what I mean? That's really like, that's their internal processing. Shane's is the same thing. It's like, that's his stroke is who he is, and that's just been, you know, it's the most identifiable characteristic of each of those guys. And but they did it to the highest level and to the highest degree. So that's what really matters, right? So I'm less about the orthodoxy. I think you start getting into orthodoxy when you have less. The further you get away from the ability to be immersed all the time and refine your own, whatever your stroke characteristics are, the more you have to be structured, right?
Yeah.
What I find interesting too is kind of seeing like the school of like the Taiwanese guys, like 99% of them all look identical. Like they get down on the ball the same way, deliver the cue the same way. It's like they've been cut from a mold. There's a factory out there that's just pumping these kids out. You know, they have the same. All Cheng Jung Lin is the only one that has a little bit different approach, but his is super compact and very efficient. He's a taller guy as well, so it makes sense that he's not as kind of like as kind of set up as Ko or, you know, Yang Ching-shan or any of those guys, like, you know. But man, phenomenal player, but very repeatable, obviously super compact, kind of delivery. Very simple, so which breeds consistency, but really you're after the consistency part. So I mean,
but there's one that, you know, if you look at a photograph, you think, well, that looks the way a stroke should look. But if you try to play the game the way he does it, it's almost impossible. Is Ralph Suke, because he's literally got like 1/3 of his cue in front of his bridge hand. I mean, if you look at how he plays the game, the distance that he has from his bridge hand to the cue ball, I get cramped up. I can't get there to do that.
You know? It's kind of funny that he's a shorter guy, and like that's how he chooses to. He's always holding the cue from. But
you really know when somebody is stroking straight if they can have that amount of cue out in front of them.
Oh my God!
It never does this or does that.
Right.
You know, at the end of the stroke,
how does
he able to find that cue ball and to be able to he rolls balls in better than anybody I've ever seen. You know, people stay away from rolling balls, you know, because they don't trust tables, or, you know, you give it a little bit more, let your cue out, it gives you more accuracy. Him rolling balls and doing it like that, for me, there's never been a player that's been able to play the shots like that, like the way Ralph does. And he's another one. When I look how far the cue ball is away from his bridge hand, I think, oh wow, really? Has nobody said, come on, Ralph, just creep forward a little bit, shorten it, you know? And not
right.
Ralph says, leave me alone, will you?
Yeah, Ralph says, I'm Ralph Suke. I've won 150 European championships.
We're not saying anything bad, Ralph.
Sorry, I'm pretty sure he's still the winning.
Again, it works, and it's you have that people try and emulate other people's strokes. We've talked about this not long ago. I think only maybe about 2 or 3 podcasts ago about, you know, trying to emulate people's strokes. I don't think it's beneficial to try and emulate people's strokes. I think you can emulate. I think you can emulate certain parts of their game. You know,
look, I mean, Shane's at the end of his stroke, what he does with the bottom of his hand.
You can try and emulate the way people play certain shots. You know, there's certain people that break. You can try and emulate that to improve your break. There's the way people jump. You can try and emulate that in order to improve your. But a stroke is so very, very difficult. So there's a million different moving parts that go into a stroke. And just getting yourself set up in your stance over the ball, that it's almost impossible to emulate somebody's stroke and get you will never emulate and get the same result just because you copy somebody's stroke, because you're always going to do something slightly different to what they do, you know?
Sure. Well, that was interesting. I just wanted to hear what you guys had to say about that.
Nate's gone very quiet because he doesn't have a stroke.
Nate's got he's got a beautiful stroke, but every week there's a comment on here that people want to see Jim and Nate play.
But they've seen it. We've done it. We've done it before. We've done it on Ghost. Yeah,
It's true. It exists.
But it exists. It's out there. Go and watch it.
Or don't. Whatever you want.
No, go and watch it. Nate might not want you to watch it.
No. All right. Well,
Okay.
we are at 2 hours, so I'm nipping
Wow,
on the bus.
really? It seems like 10 minutes.
I know.
We've
Jim
had to
and I
listen. We've had to sit here and listen to you for an hour and 45 minutes, Rob.
Oh, yeah, right.
Going on about handicaps and female players.
Right.
All right. So we're good. What's up, Jim?
We're doing this again.
Upcoming events. There's a PRP, I think, event happening in Spain. There's a lot of Spanish teams coming up.
Yeah, there's a Spanish Open happening shortly. Then there's the
Super Billiards Expo.
straight after the Spanish Open. There's another event in Spain. Can't remember what it was. The World Cup of Pool. Sorry, World Cup of Pool happens directly after it or directly before. So all the players will be there playing the Spanish Open, and then they go and play the World Cup of Pool.
That's awesome.
And then the UK Open at the end of May.
We have Memorial in Virginia, another U.S.-based ranking event, and I think that's the last U.S. ranking event until August. There's a couple question marks for a potential Omega is supposed to be doing 2 events this year, but they're to be determined, I guess, when and where. But for now, if you're an American player, Virginia on April 22nd and 23rd is the last ranking event in the U.S. until August, which is Turning Stone. So,
Okay.
Well, I'll be end of May. I'll be at the UK Open. I'll be at the UK Open end of May, and I'll do some interviews and stuff like that. Try and get some guys on live. If not, then I'll download some stuff.
Yes.
And while I'm there, if we do a podcast, if I've got a decent Wi-Fi there, then I'll get some guys. I'm sure there'll be a few of the players that'll be happy to join us.
All
We'll
right.
do some live stuff from the UK Open and see how things are going there. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Are you going to go to that, Ray?
what, UK Open?
Yeah.
No. It's I think it's sold out in like 12 seconds or something like that.
What about the European Open in Fulda later on in the year?
I don't like
Also not.
schnitzel. I love schnitzel. I'm just kidding.
Because that's all they eat. That they only eat schnitzel.
No,
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I have enough vacation time to go to every American ranking event. That's about what I have. Anything outside of that, I'd be considered a professional pool player. So I gotta be careful about that.
Yeah, Wisconsin tournaments here. Yeah, in May, sure. There's the Predator tournament here, and then the state BCA CSI.
The Cue It Up Tour Stop Final.
Yeah.
That's at
Tour
the
Stop
end
Final.
of that's at the end of April. That's at the end of this month.
Cue it up.
Is it at
Tour Stop Final. What?
Is it at Mines?
No. It
Is
is
it handicapped?
at Apple. It is handicapped, yes.
Is it handicapped?
Just so you can play in it.
Yeah, handicap based off Fargo.
I'm the defending champion of the Cue It Up Tour Stop Finals. So
Sean makes a great
I'm guessing you decided the handicaps as well then, did
Of
you?
course he did.
yes, yeah.
Sean,
Nope,
Sean
I got
makes
a spot.
Sean
I got
makes
to
a good
spot
point.
almost the field 2 games. There's about 4 players I don't have to spot 2 games.
Congratulations. Sean makes a good point. Billy's had a great run of balls here recently.
Nobody says congratulations to me.
Okay, so Billy had a great run of balls over at, and then the Ohio event and snapped off. I think the banks in the one pocket or something like that.
The bank's in the one pocket, yes.
Yes. Nate welcomes all visitors to his home.
So
Well,
he's.
I mean, but Billy's Billy. He's as long as he's playing, he's going to be one of the top guys in the States. Simple as that. He decided not to play while he was serving whatever ban or whatever, and it just took him a little bit of time to get back in. But
They started a business.
the guy's a top. The guy's a top player. He's one of the top guys in the US. So as long as he's playing, he's going to win tournaments. Simple. You know?
He started a business while he was done too. I mean, it wasn't just the
No, he had other stuff going on, but I mean, if he's not picking his cues up, he's not picking his cues up, So it takes a little bit of time to get back into it. And you saw it. He played a couple of events. He played absolutely shocking. Played like a 600 Fargo kind of thing, but that was never going to last very long, was it? As long as he's playing, he's going to get back to where he was before, and he'll be knocking off tournaments in the States regularly. And I fully expect him to make top 3 on the ranking if he plays all the Matchroom events. I fully expect him to be top 3 in the ranking. He'll be in the Moscone Cup at the end of the year.
I agree with that.
Simple as that. There's 3 guys that stick out above the rest, and he's one of them.
Yeah, Shane, Sky, and Billy.
Shane, Sky, and Billy. If Billy plays all the events, then yes, he'll rack up enough points. I'm quite sure of it. Yeah.
I know Oscar's traveling to Spain for that PRP Open.
Good for him.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that, because I was going to say Oscar's another one that but you need to be playing all the events. But it's good to hear that he's going over for that. Yeah.
He's going to go to the PRP, and I think
especially since I assume he will not be one of the World Cup of Pool players. I'm assuming that's going to be Shane and Sky. So that's I mean, you could imagine Oscar going over there if he was also a World Cup of Pool, because it's a double event then, But good for him that he's going over specifically for that one event.
He's going to go to PRP and then come to the Virginia for the Bob Stock right after. So
yeah, just round the corner.
Both, yeah.
A lot of traveling. Yeah, not fair play. I'm glad to see that. That we talked about. Players that are, that have been around for a while, and Oscar is sort of also trying to reinvent himself as a tournament player the last year. So I wish him every success. He's a good guy. Yeah,
great guy.
Well, fellas, what do you think?
Come on, Mindham, you've held us up long enough.
I've said 3 words.
We're doing this for free. We're not getting paid for this.
I don't even know what's happening anymore. All right, I'll close it out. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see y'all next week.
Sounds good.